Okay, Mr. Chairman, it is 3:30 Apple time, so with your permission, I'll go ahead and read the opening statement. Good afternoon, board members, staff, and members of the public. This meeting is being recorded, and a summary will be available upon request and in board docs. After my statement, the chairman will open the meeting and recognize legal counsel to explain the requirements for this electronic meeting. We ask that everyone keep your microphone on mute when you are not speaking. The technical support team may mute participants if the microphone is picking up background noise. Participants should check to make sure the microphone is not muted before speaking. For the board members that would like to use the hand raise feature to ask a question, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen and click on the hand icon or the three dots to bring up the drop down. We all just talked about this, and for some reason, the hand raise isn't showing up for everybody. So board members, I would ask you to consider turning off your video, and then if you have a question, turn on your video to signal the chairman that you wish to speak. For participants that wish to blur your background during the call, hover your mouse over the bottom middle part of the screen and click the three dots and choose the blur background option. You may text me at any time, 540-336-3948 during the meeting if you need technical support, and an IT tech will call your cell phone to assist. And at this time, I'd like to take a roll call attendance. So please remember to unmute when you get ready to answer. Mr. Allen?
Here.
Mr. Bonfils?
Here.
Mr. Byers?
Here.
Mr. Campbell?
Here.
Chairman Kelly?
Here.
Vice Chairman Kobles?
Here.
Mr. Moody?
Here.
Ms. Sursakar? Angeline Sursakar? Not present at this time. And Mr. Sultan?
Here.
Thank you. I now turn the meeting over to Chairman Kelly to introduce legal counsel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for attending the June meeting of the Loudoun Water Authority. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our legal counsel to read a statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In accordance with the Governor's State of Emergency Declaration and executive orders, the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors Continuity Ordinance and the General Assembly 2020 Budget Amendments 28 and 137, Loudoun Water will meet today in an electronic meeting without having the members physically present. The first order of business will be the adoption of a resolution adopting special procedures for electronic public meetings. In compliance with those special procedures, only items that are necessary to continue operations of Loudoun Water and the discharge of its lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities will be discussed during today's meeting. Although monthly reports and other informational items are available on board docs, they will not be presented and discussed at the meeting today. During the board member comments, please limit your remarks to matters that relate to the continuity of operations and discharging the board's lawful responsibilities. Public notice and meeting access information was provided on the Loudoun Water website. As Jewel mentioned, and in accordance with the budget amendments, a recording, video and audio recording of the meeting will be available in board docs or the Loudoun Water website after the meeting. I also would note for anyone who is participating and has an interest in speaking during the public comment section, you'll need to contact Jewel on her cell phone as mentioned in the notice for the meeting in order to be put on the speakers list. That's what I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. During presentations, staff will pause for questions and discussions. There'll also be an opportunity for discussion after each presentation. We will also monitor and recognize the hand raise if it's available. As you heard earlier, we were having a little trouble with that. So we'll try to recognize you as best we can. For each action item, a roll call voice vote will be taken by the board secretary, so we'll know who is voting one way or the other. An opportunity for public comment was provided within the meeting notice. Any written comments were provided to the board secretary and we read during the public speaker's agenda item. Okay. Let's see. The first order of business was the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, the last time we had a meeting. Are
Mr.
there any
Chairman,
comments?
I'm sorry
Yes.
to interrupt. I
Yeah.
think, at least on the board docs version that I was looking at, the resolution for this procedures for the electronic meeting is the first item.
Okay.
If you wouldn't mind entertaining a motion for adoption of those procedures, that would be great.
That's great. I read that, Jonathan, is after the adoption of the agenda, so sorry about that. So I'll take a motion to approve the electronic procedures for the meeting.
I make
So
that.
moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, who moved and who moved? So we could record that?
I moved,
Who-
Marty moved.
Okay, and who seconded?
I'll second Brent Campbell.
Okay, Brent, thank you. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Okay, the approval of the minutes, please. Any
I'm
questions? Sorry,
I'm sorry,
go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman. I need to take a roll call to approve the resolution.
Oh, that's true. Sorry.
Sorry, sir. So I
Okay. Are there-
have,
Do we need to take a roll call or can we ask if there's any dissent? Or does it have to be voice vote for each item?
I defer to legal counsel.
Mr. Chairman, I think it'd probably be preferable, I know it's a little cumbersome, but I think it's preferable to have the recorded votes.
Recorded.
Since we don't know if someone's on mute when they say no. I don't, I don't agree with that, so.
Okay,
Okay, so
All right.
I have Mr. Sultan making the motion and Mr. Campbell second. And for the vote, please say yay or nay. Mr. Allen,
Yay.
thank you very much. Mr. Bonfils,
Yay.
thank you. Mr. Byers,
Yay.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
yes,
Mr. Koblis,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Sursakar, absent for the vote, and Mr. Sultan.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It passed unanimously.
okay. Thank you, Jewel.
Thank you, sir.
I'll take comments on the meeting minutes from the last time we met in March. And if you would just say your name if you have any comments. If not, we'll take a motion to approve. Okay, so seeing no comments, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes as they're written.
So moved.
Mark. This is Mark. I'll second.
Okay. Bill was first.
It was Marty.
I have
Marty?
Mr. Sultan as the motion and Mr. Koblis seconding
Okay.
motion.
All right.
And I'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yay.
Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Koblis,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Sursakar, absent for the vote, and Mr. Sultan.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Thank you, Jewel.
Thank you, sir.
It looks like we're on to board member comments. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As Jonathan mentioned, we have to limit our remarks to matters related to the continuity of operations and discharging our lawful responsibilities. So do I have any member comments at this time? And if so, please identify yourself.
I have a comment, Mr. Chairman, Brent Campbell.
Okay. Thank you. Jeff Brent.
Thank you. I appreciate that we're getting to do this for the first time, and it's fun to do a virtual meeting with everyone. As we know, the governor is relaxing some of the rules that are in place right now, so perhaps we'll be able to meet together in person over the coming weeks. I don't know. But the likelihood that we may need to do additional virtual meetings, I guess this is probably not going to be our only one. Who knows? But I've appreciated the Board of Supervisors has, like a link on their website, and they've made it very accessible to watch their meetings. And that's even before this pandemic. They've had video capabilities and so forth. So I just put it out there to the board, to our staff. If even once we start to meet together in person, or if we do additional virtual meetings, we've got a great website. It's very informative. We've got a great IT department. I wonder if we have the capability to make it more accessible to the public to tune in via their home computer or wherever else and watch our meetings, whether we're in person or we're meeting virtually like this. So I just put that out there to everyone for consideration. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Brent. Any
This
other
is-
comments?
This
Marty?
is Mark. You hear me?
Yes, Marty?
I would just like to compliment Carla and the entire staff for the way they've conducted this, the duties of Loudon Water during this pandemic. They've done a wonderful job.
Thank you, Marty. I think we'll all agree with that. They've done exceptional work and keep this operation going and smoothly with no really any bumps. Anyone else at this time?
Yes, hi, this is Keith Moody. I would
Hi,
just like
Keith.
to, hi, how you doing? I just want to compliment the CIP meeting as a new member. I had not said, I'm not a part of the voting committee, a voting member on the CIP, but had an opportunity to sit in on the last meeting. And I was really impressed with how well it was run and how engaging it was. So I look forward to joining more of the CIP meetings and just sitting in and just hearing the engaging discussion.
Thanks, Keith, and thanks for attending the meeting. That was great. Yeah, I attended as well.
Mr. Chairman,
Any-
I would like to comment.
Yes, please, Terry.
I want to thank Carla for the Loudon Water updates that she's been putting out every week. I think as far as keeping the board up to date on what's been happening at Loudon Water over the past 10 weeks, I think those updates have been very helpful. And then I also want to say that I'm encouraged that we're going to phase 2 tomorrow. The governor is allowing us to have gatherings of the 50 people. I'm hopeful that that we can start to have meetings again, whether they're Beaver Dam workshops or whether it's a finance meeting or whether it's a board meeting. Coming up in July, I think the conference room should be able to accommodate the social distancing metrics, and I think 50 people should be sufficient in there. So I'm actually hopeful that we can get back to in-person business.
Thank you, Terry. Anyone else at this time? Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll move on to the general manager report. Carla? Is Carla on? Unmute.
It helps when you unmute yourself. Great things, and we all missed. Sorry.
Hi, Carla. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Kelly, and thank you for the compliments. Really goes back to staff. They're doing an amazing job given these challenges that we're facing, and couldn't be more proud. Just a couple quick updates as far as operations go. As mentioned, Loudoun County goes into phase 2 tomorrow. From staff's perspective, not a lot changes. We're still coordinating with our regional partners and regional utilities on opening our buildings back up to the public, and also continuing or having discussions about when we will resume disconnection for non-payment and things of that nature, which won't be anytime soon. Operations do continue without issue. I think it's important that you know that. We are tracking some, continue to track metrics. We've been telling you about payment plans, and to date, we have 250 in place since this emergency started. surprisingly, our accounts receivable and outstanding balances are not as bad as we thought they could be. But again, we're sort of in the early stages of looking at that information, and so we'll keep you informed about that. Through today, for the month of June, we have 41 ERCs. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that our annual flushing program, 12-week program, is wrapping up this week. And staff again has done an incredible job to get that done during this challenging time. We have 13,000 fire hydrants in our system. And as of tomorrow, close of business tomorrow, all of those will have been flushed. So hats off to them. They continue to do a great job and impress. So, and that's all I have at this time.
Carla, I think you covered this, but I just want to ask a question. Did we have many customers ask for financial help in paying their bills?
Yes, and that would be the payment plan arrangements that we have, and we have 250 of those in place right now. And we also include messaging to our customers, and this happened even before we went into this situation, that we provide the number for the county social services so that they can hook up with them and get additional help through other nonprofit means.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have a question for Carla?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. This time we'll move on to public comments. Jewel, has anyone contacted you to make a comment?
No, sir, we don't have any public speakers signed up.
Okay. And again, as we said in the beginning, if there are, while we do these electronic meetings, if there are people who would like to make a comment to the board, please do so through the board secretary, Jewel Lilly, and she'll record your name and your comment. Okay, at this time, I'd like to take a motion to adopt the agenda as written.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Jewel, take a roll call vote.
I'm sorry, I have Bill Byers as the motion, and who seconded?
Brent Campbell.
Thank you, Brent. And roll call vote, Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Koblis,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Sursakar, Angeline Sursakar. Are you muted, Angeline? Okay, I'm sorry, absent for the vote. And Mr. Sultan.
Yes.
Thank you. Passed unanimously, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jewel. All right, board committee action. I'm going to ask council to guide me through this. This is an information only item. Does that need to be presented, or is that sufficient that it was included in the package?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's up to you. I think that because this has to do with continuity of operations and reports on items, action items that are on the consent agenda, I think it would be appropriate for Mr. Koblis to just give a short summary, as he normally does, of the CIP committee.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When Jonathan said not to say anything, I didn't say anything, but I want to echo everybody that thanked the board. I mean, I had all the same thinkings of thanking and appreciation. Also, I just want to say thanks for how well the CIP virtual meeting went. I think it went just absolutely perfect, and you could tell that it was very well planned out by Loudon Water and the technical staff, and it went really well. We had our meeting just last week, actually, and we had a few items that we've put on consent. The first thing we put on consent was the water line extension in Broad Run Farms. And this is to be totally paid for by Loudoun County, so we felt it didn't need discussion in this meeting. It was about, I think, let's see, it's the design part was $800,000, and this is for the second portion of Broad Run. And it's actually pretty interesting, so I would encourage people to look at what they put together. Then we had the award of the construction contract, which we, because of the size of it, and this is for the Broad Run Waste Facility Expansion Project. Because of the size of it, I asked that there be a short presentation at this board meeting, and we will, it will be an action item. Second thing is the second part of it, which is basically the construction engineering services for the same project. It is a large amount of almost $12 million. After considerable explanation by Mr. Stone, I fully supported it, but because of the size, and so did I feel that the rest of the committee did also, but because of the size of the project, we put it on the, oh, I'm sorry, we decided to put this on the consent agenda. Oh, I take that back. I had that wrong. But anyway, just as quickly then, there was a lot of explanation on it, and we felt that Hazen is definitely the right person to do the construction management on this project, and with Brian Stone looking over their shoulder. I'm going to make sure that I get the next one correct. Okay, so the next one was also put on the construction consent agenda. This is for a type of program for the next project, which is called CMAR, Construction Management at Risk, where you have a contractor that works with the designer, and it's a very good process that I've been a part of many times, and we agreed to do this and put it on the consent agenda. After that, we had a short monthly report by Tom Lipinski, and we concluded after about almost 3 hours. It was quite an extensive meeting. And again, I thank you for everybody that participated, and definitely for the people that put it together. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mark. Good report and a good meeting. Yes, please.
Sorry to interrupt. Mr. Kobliss, I think the construction engineering services for Broad Run is actually on the action agenda, it looks like, if I'm reading the
There may have been
correctly.
an error on the write-up then.
Oh, okay. I was wondering. I thought, man, you guys fooled me. Okay, good. Well, that's good.
Okay. Jewel, let's see, where are we on the agenda? The approval of the design task order, Broad Run Farms waterline extension?
Yes, sir.
Are these the consent? I can't see the agenda.
Yes,
Are these
sir.
the consent? These the consent items?
Yes, we're on the consent agenda, the approval of
Okay.
design task order for Broad Run Farms waterline extension and the authorization to use construction management CMAR procurement.
Okay. I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'd like
So
to
moved.
make that motion.
Okay, Mark,
I second.
it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, Jewel, take a roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. I have Mr. Kobliss as the motion, Mr. Sultan second. And roll call vote, Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Kobliss,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Sursikar, absent for the vote, and Mr. Sultan.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed unanimously.
Thank you, Jewel. Okay, we're on to the action agenda, as I understand
sir.
it. All right, the first three items, A, B, and C. I'll turn it over to our council.
Thank you, Mr.
John?
Chairman. This is the meeting during the year when the officers for Loudoun Water are elected. And the first item on the agenda for the elections is the election of the board chairman. And the way we have handled it in the past, and I suggest we handle it this year, is to take nominations from the floor. And if there are more than one nomination for the office of chairman, then during the roll call, we'll ask the board member to identify which candidate they are casting their vote for. If there's only one nominee for the office of chairman, then we can have a motion simply to elect that individual as chairman and then take a roll call vote of yes and no. So with that explanation, I would ask the board members if there are any nominations, although it looks like Jewel is indicating she has raised her hand. Sorry.
Sorry, I wanted to mention that it appears Angelina is raising her hand, but we appear to be having a problem with her audio.
Okay.
Ms. Ursakar, is there?
Jewel, can I, it appears that she is logged in, not with her Loudon Water credentials because it shows as being outside the organization. That may be causing a problem. That was a problem with one of the test days.
Okay, Ms. Ursakar, if you could log out and then log in using your Loudon Water credentials. I think, as Roddy said, that might solve the problem. Mr. Chairman, would you mind waiting a moment?
No,
to,
let's, I think we need to wait. So this is important. So,
Okay.
um,
IT is going to call her to assist. AJ, if you would do that, please.
is there a way for her to dial into Teams? I know that's a feature on some of the teams. You can dial in from your cell phone.
Yes, our IT department is going to call her right now to see if they can assist her with
Okay.
getting logged in and being able to hear her. So bear with us, everyone, please, for a few moments.
Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting, wanted to just confirm the bylaws, particularly for the new members, indicate that the office of chairman and vice chairman have a term limit, so that unless there's a special motion to waive this restriction, if the chairman or vice chairman have served 4 consecutive one-year terms, they would not be eligible for election. And I think I'm recalling, Mr. Chairman, that you might have served for 4 consecutive terms, but I'm trying to remember we had that discussion.
Yes, you're correct. I have.
Okay.
So I'm at my term limit unless there's a motion to amend the bylaws, but I'm not running at this time. So
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks for bringing that up, Jonathan.
He's unmuted.
I would just say at this time, since we're at the action section of the agenda, action items, I don't want to move to item D, E, or F. I think we all need to vote on these and record that vote. So I prefer not to skip in the agenda into another item. Just wait and go in order.
She is attempting to log into her account now with the assistance of IT.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Jewel, would you ask Ms. Hisakar when she comes on, since we've come to this section of the agenda, if she heard Jonathan's remarks regarding the election process, just to make
Yes,
sure
sir.
she knows? Okay, thank you. If
Thank
not,
you.
we can repeat it.
Okay. I know that she was logged in for a period of time, so I'm not sure what she was able to hear, but definitely I'll ask her that.
Okay, thank you.
I assume we're not allowed to tell any lawyer jokes right now.
That's prohibited in the special procedures that we adopted.
I don't know. I didn't see it prohibited.
I'd like to
Not-
motion that we waive the special procedures.
It's not necessary for continued operations.
Bill, I was going to say your haircut's looking sharp, and I need a haircut. Where do I go?
You got to know somebody.
Right, you got to know
When you make-
somebody.
When you make PPP loans for a living, you make a lot of friends.
I tried to get my wife to cut my hair, but she's not too happy about doing it.
You could always take my approach.
There you go. That's cool.
Good one, Keith.
That's the smartest haircut you can have nowadays.
Jonathan, Mr. Chairman, would it be possible, or would you like to go on to the other agenda items in the action agenda and come back to the election? Or
I prefer not to,
Okay.
Jewel. I'd like Angeline to have the opportunity to vote on each of the items if it's not going to take much longer. If it is, then yes, I would like to move on to the other items.
bear with us, IT is continuing to work with her.
Okay,
Thank you.
we'll give it a few more minutes then.
What, Michael?
Jewel and Mr. Chairman, if Ms. Hisakar is able to call in She doesn't have to necessarily be logged in to participate. We just need to be able to hear her voice on the recording.
When she did call in, we were unable to hear her.
Okay,
Sorry.
no problem.
We're trying other options. We've tried her calling us calling her. I
mean, even if it's, putting your phone, Jewel, on speakerphone so that we can hear through your microphone, that might be a
let me see if
possibility.
if we can do that and keep the connection. Hold, please.
No problem.
Hi, Angeline, can you hear us?
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Welcome, Angeline.
Yes, sorry about that.
No.
Yeah, we were just having some issues, but gentlemen, please, yeah, everybody, please move forward. Yeah. Sometimes we have these issues, but I'm here.
Okay, great. I don't know which part you heard. Did you hear the procedures for the, we're on the action items part of the agenda. And the first three items relate to election of officers of the board. And I don't know if you heard the procedures for that. Did you hear that?
No, I did not.
Okay. Jonathan,
Sure,
if you wouldn't mind
be
going
happy
through
to,
that.
yeah, to quickly summarize. So there are three offices that will be holding elections for board chair, board vice chair, and then the treasurer and board secretary. Actually, four offices. And the way that we've handled it in the past and suggest we do this time is that, for example, for board chairman, we'll take nominations from the floor, from the board members. If there's more than one nomination for the office, then I'll have Jewel recite the names who've been nominated and then go through the roll call and ask each board member to identify which candidate he or she is voting for. If there's only one nomination for an office, then we'll just have a motion to elect that individual to the office. And as we discussed, there is a term limit. Mr. Kelly's reached his 4-year term or limit on annual terms for chairman, and unless the board were to move to waive that limit, he would not be eligible for re-election. So those are the basic rules. And if everybody's ready, I'll ask for any nominations for the office of chairman.
I'll nominate Mark Kobelis as chairman. This is Sean Kelly.
I'll second Mark Kelly's, Mark Kobelis' nomination. This is Jim Bonfils.
Thank you. Are there other nominations for the office of board chairman?
I would like to nominate Mark Kolbus for the chairman as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Any other individuals other than Mark to be nominated for the office of chairman? Okay, hearing none. I think, Jewel, we can take that as in the form of a motion and then simply call the roll of the board members who support the motion to elect Mark Kobelis as chairman.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils?
Yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Kobelis?
Is it appropriate for me to vote for myself?
if you wish.
I'll say yes then.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Sursakar,
Yes.
and Mr. Sultan.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Jewel.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for your confidence, and I look forward to serving everyone and Loudoun County. Thank you.
And I just want to thank everyone. All right, go ahead.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Mark. I want to thank everyone for a great board. It's been enjoyable these last 4 years being the chairman, and I really appreciate all your work and dedication to the board, and thank the staff as well. It's been great. Jonathan, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. So the next office for election is the board vice chairman. We'll handle it in the same process. So I would ask any nominations from the board for the office of vice chairman.
Yeah, this is Mark Koblis. I'd like to nominate Terry Allen and also thank Sean for his position these past 4 years. It's been great working so close to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. And I'll second Mark's motion for Terry to be vice chairman.
Yes, I'd like to repeat what was just said.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that you would like to nominate for the office of vice chairman? Any board member wants to nominate?
I would like to nominate Terry Allen as the vice chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Okay, so Jewel will handle this in the same way. It's a motion to elect Terry Allen as vice chairman and ask the board members to respond to the roll call vote with a yes or no.
Thank you, Jonathan. Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Koblis,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Sursakar,
Yes.
and Mr. Sultan.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Jewel.
And thank you everyone for the vote of confidence, and I look forward to working under Mark's tutelage.
Thanks, Terry.
Thanks. The final item on the election agenda is the election of the treasurer and board secretary, which those posts have traditionally been held by the staff. The general manager usually serves as treasurer of Loudoun Water, and Jewel has served as board secretary for a number of years. So it would be appropriate if one of the board members would like to nominate for re-election Carla Burleson as treasurer and Jewel Lilly as board secretary.
So moved. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
I was in there.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sultan.
Jewel, if you could call the roll on the motion to re-elect Carla Burleson as treasurer and Jewel Lilly as board secretary.
Certainly. Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Koblis,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Sursakar,
Yes.
and Mr. Sultan.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you, Jewel.
Thank you.
And to round out the last 3 items during my term as chairman, we'll move on to item D, the comprehensive annual financial report by Brian Carnes.
Good afternoon. I'm here today to seek your approval for the distribution of the 2019 comprehensive annual financial report. Loudoun Water has several filing deadlines in late June and early July that we need to comply with in order to meet obligations related to our revenue bond. A PDF version of this report is included in board docs. If you have any questions about the report, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, the recommended motion can be seen on your screen. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the comprehensive annual financial report as presented.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, I'll just add that we also received a clean audit on this, and congratulate Brian and his staff on a job well done.
Thank you.
Any other comments? No, we can take the roll call, Jewel.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Byers, second by Mr. Sultan. Roll call vote. Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Koblis,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Sursikar,
Yes.
and Mr. Sultan.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jewel.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, item E on the action agenda, the award of the construction contract for Broad Run Reclamation Facility expansion. Rick, are you going to handle this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rick Zafel. I'm a senior project engineer with Loudon Water, and I'm here today to request award of the construction contract for the Broad Run Water Reclamation Facility expansion project. And okay, the agenda for my brief presentation today, we're going to talk a little bit about Broad Run history, talk about the need for expansion. We'll go over the project scope and some cost-saving measures and challenges associated with the project. We'll review the construction schedule and the bid and award process, and then we'll wrap up with the bid tabulation, recommendation, and the motion. So Broad Run was commissioned in 2008 as the largest membrane bioreactor treatment plant in the world as a 10 MGD facility. And the construction ran for 4 years from 2004 to 2008 at a cost of $190 million in 2006 dollars. And the Broad Run facility was a very highly automated state-of-the-art facility, for good reason, to meet the stringent discharge limits that the plant is under. And so the need for expansion kind of mostly points to growth, population growth, and increasing wastewater flows in the central service area. If you look at the trend here on this graph, the 10 data points show an increasing trend over the last decade. And then as we project it out with the dashed line, and then also the light blue shading as well, you can see that flows at Broad Run will increase over the years. And so in order to meet that growth and meet that additional flow, the expansion, it really began back in 2014 with the master plan effort that set the vision for how we would expand Broad Run going forward into the future. And the master plan led to the design of this project, which started in 2017. And then here we are at the start of construction here in 2020. The idea is to have the 15 MGD facilities online by the 2023-2024 timeframe, so that when flows exceed the current capacity of 10 MGD, we're ready to handle those through the plant. And then that same philosophy applies to the next expansion, which is assumed to be to 20 MGD. Of course, things get a little fuzzier as you move out into the future, but the idea is to have those facilities online when the flows reach that 15 MGD threshold. And so if we take a look at this graphic here. So we've got the process flow schematic of Broad Run. The liquids process flow is on the top here, moving from left to right. That includes equalization. And then we have the solids process dropping down here and then moving left to right. And as we look at the expansion project facilities, so we've got the new concrete or new process structures outlined in yellow. And then we've got the process structures where we are able to modify the existing facilities and re-rate those while not impacting or changing the existing concrete footprint of those buildings or structures. Those are outlined in blue. And one of the guiding principles of the master plan effort was to leverage existing assets first. And we've done that here with this project by, number one, minimizing the amount of new concrete process structures, and then also confining those to the more simpler processes in the plant. These processes here are the preliminary and primary treatment and equalization. They're much less costly than the more advanced processes, the secondary and tertiary processes at the back end of the plant. And so thinking about some of the project challenges, so this is a retrofit project that impacts most of the existing facilities at Broad Run. And into the project, we've built in some early delivery milestones. There are many processes with tie-ins to these new facilities that we're going to build. Our contract documents include numerous sequencing constraints, and all of this means a lot of coordination with existing Broad Run staff. And if we take a look at the kind of the standard project team approach to a capital construction project of this nature, we've got the owner, engineer, and contractor, all working toward the goal of building the expansion project. But since this is an operating facility that must meet permit throughout the course of construction, it casts a little bit of an additional burden on the owner, in that we have to be sure that the plant meets permit, and so it requires the construction to be very surgical and precise as we build and commission these new facilities that are intermingled with the existing plant, and we do that without interrupting the existing process. And so, any questions so far? Okay, I'll keep going here. So I'm going to walk you through a construction schedule now that will take us from the anticipated notice to proceed in July through to the substantial completion date that we're targeting at the end of 2023. And so, here we are at the beginning of the project. And in the first 6 months, you have a lot of submittals and a lot of some support work that the contractor does, like his trailers and laydown area. And but by the way, there's a legend up here at the upper left. As I step through this, you'll see the colors change, and it will show you the different disciplines of work that are going on. Of course, blue means that the work is complete. So as we're walking through the construction here, we're starting to get into some process work areas. Some of the less constrained work is happening, and those early delivery milestones that I mentioned before, the 6 of those, are starting to ramp up. And we gain a few more work areas as we move through. We start to see some of the less constrained and those milestones completed now as we hit the midpoint of construction, and we ramp up to our maximum number of work areas, which is 6 as constrained by the project. And you're starting to see some more work being finished. And then we get into the more complicated work as we go through the second half of construction. I just want to mention real quickly that, as these facilities are starting to turn blue and reach completion, there are numerous tie-ins that are going on, and there are commissioning steps where we go through startup processes to bring these facilities online and connected to the plant control system. So it's it's there's a lot of things happening to move through this construction process. And then as we come down the home stretch and reach substantial completion, we finish up with the membrane work. And so quickly, the timeline of the bid and award process. So it was January 29th that we advertised the project for bid. We received 4 bids on May 21st at our bid opening, and we're here to seek approval of the award today with plans to get started on construction next month or at the latest early August. And so I've got the bid tabulation here for you. I've got the 4 bids shown in this table, and then we've got the engineer's estimate as well. And we got a pretty nice bid spread. We do feel like there was some market conditions that may have impacted the bid, related to maybe contractors perhaps reducing their price to be able to have a nicer backlog and keep their people busy. Contractors don't typically like to admit that, but we feel like there might have been some influence in that direction with the economic uncertainty that we're in right now. Any questions so far?
Yes, I do have a question. So we had talked in our last meeting last week about corpsman caucusing.
Yes.
Caucusing, yeah, caucusing. I apologies for not pronouncing that right. I had raised a question, and I'm still going to raise this question again today. I would like to know who are their subcontractors. We had talked about it at that time that I had asked this question last week. I was notified that they haven't, as of yet, selected their subcontractors, which I understand, in the field of the business they are in. It's not always lined up, but it would be great to know at this time, who are they planning to have as subcontractors, because they are equally important, and in making a decision here today, in my opinion.
Okay, so I only know of a couple of subcontractors. I know that Singleton Electric is the electrical subcontractor that they provided on the bid form when they submitted their bid. I know that Universal Painting is the painting and coating subcontractor that they put on their bid form for all their painting work. And then there's one other subcontractor that I will have for you in just a second here. Okay. All right. Just bear with me for 1 second. And the other subcontractor was JPG, and that was for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And those were the 3 that they provided on their bid form.
Okay, thank you. And the reason I asked that is because, we don't want, and moving forward, if there's any unexpectancies or any constraints or challenges, it's always great to know, who are they subcontracting with, just for an FYI or a reference at this point.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So our bid recommendation is to move ahead with awarding the contract to Corpsman Caucusing Construction Company. They're a full service heavy construction company that's been around for a long time. They did participate actively in the bid process with submitting questions. They have huge company resources at their disposal to devote to this project. They've certainly done work on large facilities, and as close to us as DC Water. They've done work in the DC metropolitan area. They do have a regional office, and we checked out their references, and they were some of the best references that I have seen. And of course, they are offering a very competitive cost. And so with that, my recommended motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we award the construction contract to Corman Co-Coasing for the expansion.
Okay, is there a second?
I
I'll
would like to
second it.
second that. Angeline here.
Okay, Angeline, thank you. For purposes of discussion, Mark, as Chair of CIP, did you have anything to add before we take the vote?
No, it was a presentation that was.
Oh, he froze up.
You froze up. We lost you there, Mark. Rick, thank you very much for the overview. That was very well done.
Thank you.
Looks like Mark's back.
Mark?
Okay, unmute.
Oh, I'm sorry. You couldn't hear me before. That's funny.
Yeah,
I
you froze.
Anyway, I just said it was a great, extensive presentation before, and I believe that all of us on the committee think that or believe that this is the right company and at the right price. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded. We can take the roll call vote, Jewel.
Thank you. Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Koblis,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Sursakar,
Yes.
and Mr. Sultan.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you, Jewel.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the next item, which is the approval of a contract amendment for construction engineering services for Broad Run Water Reclamation Facility expansion. Brian Stone, you'll lead that overview?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. I'm here to present a request to award a contract amendment to Hazen and Sawyer for services through construction for the Broad Run Water Reclamation Facility that Rick just spoke to you about. I prepared this brief agenda with these 7 items that you have before you. I will close the presentation with a recommended motion as well. And I will pause between each slide for questions. Do I have any questions on the agenda? Okay. So why do we need these engineering services? These engineering services are important to us to leverage the engineer's understanding and expertise. This will provide some continuity. It's a continuation of the design services that they began years ago. And that continuity will provide efficiency and cost effectiveness for us. And it will also maintain their indemnification and design responsibility under the contract. Secondly, it will protect our interest and mitigate risk through their understanding of the work, the inspection work that we're proposing they do for us, the overall administration and the indemnification. And I just want to speak quickly on indemnification. Indemnification is really about protecting Loudoun Water against claims related to the design itself and the engineering behind the project. This is it's almost like an insurance that the engineer is providing to us related to the design. So if the contractor constructs it in accordance with the plans and specs and we operate it as intended, it better work, or we're going to the engineer for those corrections. We prepared a risk register for this project, and I won't read through all of these, but there are 2 risks that I do want to highlight on this slide that are really going to keep me up at night. The first is that the risk from delays or potential delays on the project. We need this capacity by the beginning of 2024. That's really important to us. And to that end, we're going to have to think creatively during the course of construction to think about workaround solutions when we come into when we encounter problems in the project. There's consequences to those risks, and I won't again read those and the mitigation strategies as well. But we're thinking about this risk as we go along during the construction. One of the things that is an early one of the ways we've addressed the risk is through the delivery of the equalization tanks or tank early. That's a 10 million gallon storage tank that is going to be delivered early in the project. That is a milestone, and that will provide some resiliency for us. One of the things we discussed last week was the possibility to add a second equalization tank, and we will be looking into that as well. And we'll be looking into that early so we can make that decision promptly. Another risk that Rick mentioned earlier was the impact to continuous operation at Broad Run while we are doing the construction. And that's going to be a real challenge for us as well, because this contractor is not building as so much new concrete or so many new structures and new concrete, but is actually working in our existing plant and replacing equipment while we are operating right next to them. This is just a continuation of the risk register. Of course, one of the risks that any construction project has is the risk of claims for additional cost. We look back at the Potomac Water Supply Program, and we're pretty proud of that we had very few claims over the course of that project. And those claims were resolved very quickly, so that when we got to the end of the project, the closeout was much simpler that way. And we're going to be proactive in managing this contract in that same manner. Any questions?
Hi, this is Keith Moody. Just want to inquire about the risk register. In terms of COVID, is there an inherent risk with COVID, or is that baked into the risk you have identified right now?
That's a great question, because we have heard recently of some potential delays for equipment related to COVID, and that is not so much a risk to us that's going to increase the cost, because we have a no damages for delay provision related to epidemics and pandemics, but it could delay the project itself, and that's one of the things that we'll be watching out for. So it's on one side, on the compensation side, I think we're pretty protected there, but on the time side, that would be an excusable delay. Does that answer your question, Mr. Moody?
Yes, understood.
Okay. Thank you. This next slide is just the team structure. This is a traditional procurement. It's a design, bid, build. Loudon Water is the owner, and we have contracts, or we're proposing this contract with the engineer, and we are proposing, of course, the contract that Rick just presented for Corman Kokosing. The dashed line between the engineer and the contractor is a communications line. So there's not an agreement between those two. The agreements are only with Loudon Water and each of those parties. But each of those parties, the engineer is recognized in the contractor's contract and vice versa. So the engineer plays a vital role in communications on the project. Any questions? This next slide is the roles and responsibilities for each of the parties. On the left is the proposed role and responsibility for Hazen on the project. And these scope elements were used to price up the scope of work and the amendment that we're putting before you. On the right is Loudon Water's overall responsibility is overall management of both contracts, ensuring compliance while we're constructing this work. I'll be monitoring and reporting the status to you routinely. And then the contractor's responsibility is to construct per the plans and specifications. Any questions? Okay, we began the scope and fee development back in the fourth quarter last year. We had some discussions with Greeley and Hansen, the program manager on the Potomac Water Supply Program. And we began discussions with Hazen at that time as well. We wanted to make sure that we captured lessons learned and that we had a good, solid plan for delivering this work. So we went through a lot of negotiations and back and forth with Hazen. They developed a bottom-up cost estimate and for us. This was all driven by Loudon Water, though. That's the key, is that this is the scope of work that we wanted and we requested from them. We got the final estimate about 2 months ago. Any questions? We categorized the engineering services into 4 separate phases. We've got the basic services phase, which I have before you, totaling approximately $6.3 million. It includes the kind of services that we often see in our projects. Although this one does include a field-based project administration. We have a resident project representative from Hazen at the site. And it includes meeting attendance, periodic site visits, and submittal reviews and requests for clarification, those sorts of responses as well, and overall project management. Any questions? Second category is additional services. Includes field inspections. We're going to get one full-time inspector from Hazen on the project, and we'll be getting periodic specific special inspections from them for certain elements of the work, like structural and mechanical, but that would be on an as-needed basis. We have special inspections to comply with building code requirements, materials testing, commissioning, and startup testing. And then record drawing preparations included here as well. The total for additional services is approximately $3 million. That EOR that you see there on this slide, that stands for engineer of record. Since Hazen is the engineer of record, we need them to perform these services. The next two categories are operational support services and PLC and SCADA programming services. PLC is a programmable logic controller. SCADA stands for supervisory control and data acquisition. And in simple terms, these are the computer systems that operate the plant. So we have a heavy programming component in this contract. It includes a subcontract with a company called eMerge, that has done quite a bit of work for us at the plant, and they're doing some work for us at Beacon Hill as well. The total of these two services combined is approximately $1.7 million, $485,000 for operational support, and then the programming services at $1.2 million. The total for all these services is $10,977,000. Any questions? Okay, we wanted to compare the cost for this project versus a greenfield project. And so we looked at the original Broad Run construction between the 2004 and 2008 timeframe, and we escalated that cost to $2020. And we think we're getting real value out of this project, because for $76 million in construction costs, we're getting an extra 5 million gallons per day of capacity. That same construction cost for new work that would be further to the north could be estimated at approximately $140 million. And we bring this up because our engineering services during construction as a percentage is a little bit higher, but overall, this is a much, much less expensive project to construct than greenfields type construction. Any questions? Okay, I've got the engineering services, the estimated labor effort over the course of the project that Hazen has estimated. This includes their subconsultants, inspectors, office personnel, field personnel, and then the purple color in the background is a summation of all of those over the course of the project. So you'll see that the labor varies over the course of the project.
Hey, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Angelina has her hand up.
Okay. I didn't see that.
That's fine. That's okay. I had a question. You don't have to go back to the slide, but the question I had was, Hazen is providing one special instructor or one special engineer for this. How many engineers or inspection officers do we have from Loudon Water on this project?
Okay, we're going to have 2 full-time inspectors from Loudon Water. We have 1 full-time inspector from Hazen, and they will provide periodic discipline-specific inspectors as well. I actually cover that in one of the slides towards the end.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And this is just the pie chart showing the services by category and the overall percentage. 58% of the overall estimate for this contract is in basic services. The additional services, it makes up 27% of the overall estimate, and then operational support and PLC and SCADA programming are 4% and 11% respectively. Any questions? Okay, this is a fee comparison with some other projects that we've had recently, including Beaver Dam, the interim biosolids project at Hazen that we just completed with Hazen a little over a year ago, the Trap Rock project, the water plant, and then the raw water intake and pump station, which was designed by Arcadis. And the Beaver Dam project included full-time inspection and field management, and that was at roughly 12% of the construction cost, just to give you an idea of the percentage. It didn't include any sort of programming effort at all for that project because we didn't have any sort of programming there, or it was all covered at least by the contractor. We do have a pump station, but it was very minor. The Trap Rock, of course, included a great deal of programming. That is included in the 11% estimate, or 11% of construction. But the 11% and the 24% for Trap Rock and the raw water intake and pump station, those numbers do not include the program management, which was another layer over that as well. So just to give you an idea of where this project falls in relationship to the others. So we're right in line with the Potomac Water Supply Program.
Hey, Brian, Brent Campbell, real quick, what role did Greeley and Hanson play at Trap Rock? Because they were involved.
Yeah, they were the program manager.
Okay.
And so they handled all the schedule reviews. They took care of the electronic administration, which included all the submittals. They kept track of all of that and provided just general consulting services to us for all the projects and coordinating all of the work.
Okay. And when you combine their work with CDM Smith's, what do you have a rough idea of what percentage of the over budget that comes to?
Yeah, we looked at that and trying to prorate how much of Greeley's contract could be applied to each of these. It gets to be really tough to do. It would be, I think, probably 16-17%. It would increase, like Trap Rock, for instance, to say 16 or 17%. But it gets to be, it's kind of subjective as to how that's all done. I think Greeley's contract was $13 million total. So I think you kind of have to look at it within the total program. And I think there was a roughly $175 or $180 million in construction there. Yeah. So I don't want to. We thought about that. I didn't want to get too much into that because it's a little bit subjective, and I didn't want to. I wanted to be as accurate as I could in portraying what we're proposing here versus what I can tell you they did at Trap Rock for sure.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I appreciate that.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I think, Mr. Surskar, this may answer your question. We have 2 full-time inspectors that we will be using from Loudoun Water that will be assigned to the project. Hazen has 1 full-time inspector, and then they're going to provide periodic discipline-specific inspections with their staff from Fairfax as well. And then the second bullet item is we are administering this project, as we do all of our projects now, through Procore, which is a construction software program. I can tell you on Trap Rock, that's what Greeley did for us. They used a program called eBuilder. Over the course of the past 7 years, we've tried a number of programs, including, of course, eBuilder, EA Docs, Project Mates, Primavera, and Procore. And we settled on Procore a little over a year and a half ago. So we're using that for all of our construction projects now. And we are the administrator for Procore on the project. And so that's one way that we're saving money. And we're being consistent that way through over all of our projects. So we want to be congruent. We've got our spec written around Procore. Well, any questions on this slide before I get to the recommended motion? Okay, I've got a recommended motion before you to award this contract amendment for construction phase engineering services to Hazen and Sawyer for $10,977,000 with an approximate 5% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $11,550,000, and additional costs will require board approval.
Yeah, this is Mark. I'd like to make that motion. And again, I thank Brian. This was a very delicate presentation because of the concerns that I personally have had on all of this. And I just want to say great job, Brian.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koblis.
I'll second the motion.
I'm
Did you
sorry,
get
who
that,
was the
Jim?
second?
That's Julie, it's Sean Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Brian, for well done presentation, and thanks for your work on this. It's been
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly.
okay, Julie.
I do have one quick question. You know, 5% contingency is a reasonable contingency. The only thing that comes to my mind as I go with the uncertainties around COVID and so forth, is it appropriate or necessary that contingency be something higher, or is 5% still a reasonable expectation for this project?
I'm going to weigh in to say that I think it's, I think we start with that and hope, and we've been generally coming in much lower than our contingency on most of our projects. I appreciate what you're saying there, but obviously then if that does come up, we'll just need to come back to you all for an amendment to the budget.
Yeah, Brent, this is an hourly contract, so we'll be seeing as it grows, and we'll have plenty of time to change that contingency if we feel necessary.
Okay, great. Yeah. And Brian, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it as well.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Thanks for your question, Brent. Are there any other comments before we go to roll call for the vote? Okay.
Mr. Allen?
I approve.
Mr. Bonfils? Mr. Bonfils?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Koblis?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Sursikar?
Yes.
And Mr. Sultan?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jewel.
Thank you.
You skipped Mr. Byers, but Mr. Byers is a yes.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Byers. Thank you for clarifying that.
That's okay.
Thank you, Bill. Just want to make sure you're still awake. We have informational items. As you heard at the beginning of the meeting, we will not be reviewing those. They're there in your board package for your review. I would say if there's any questions, I guess you could email Carla and she can get the answer for you. Other than that, we're not going to be discussing those today. Are there any other items that the members would like to bring up at this time, or Carla or staff, if you'd like to bring up anything at this time?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up one thing. I lost my internet briefly there, and I was not able to call in on the number that's on the invitation. I called in, and I'm guessing that nobody really started up the conference call part, so I couldn't get in. So we may want to just have that open just in case something like this happens to me or somebody else that's not on cable. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mark. Yes. Hello?
Michael is going to.
I was gonna mention. Yeah, we'll go ahead and look into that, but it does look like there are a couple of users in the meeting that are on their phones as well. So, but we will go ahead and look into that for you. Thank you.
Okay, before I take a motion to adjourn, I'd just like to thank Jewel. Great job, Jewel, keeping track of everything. I know that's not easy in a virtual
Thank
meeting.
you.
So well done,
Appreciate it.
and thanks for working with the members to make sure they are up to speed on Teams and knew how to do it. I think that was great. I think the prep work was fantastic. So thank you, and thank you, board members, for your participation, your patience as we do this. It was great to be able to meet at least virtually, and I hope to see you in person soon. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
And
Okay,
roll call
Jewel.
vote. Mr. Allen,
Yes, adjourn.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr.
Okay, thank you.
Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Koblis,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Sursakar,
Yes.
and Mr. Sultan.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passed unanimously to adjourn.
Okay, thank you again, Jewel. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.